Empires won by conquest have always fallen by revolt within or by the feet or by a rival. John Boyd. Yo guys, what's going on? It is Tony, and this is part 2 of the world's largest empires. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Number 1, the Umayyad Caliphate. The Umayyad Empire was established in 632 CE after the death of the Prophet Muhammad. It was to grow over 400 million square miles and making it one of the largest empires in history. The early rulers of this Arab kingdom, led by Abu Sufyan, initially resisted the new Muslim traditions. However, they embraced Islam in 627, joining the Prophet Muhammad and his followers. The Umayyads soon became the most influential administrators under Muhammad. Following the assassination of the third caliph, a civil war broke out, and Abu Sufyan's son, Muawiyah, seized power for Muhammad's son-in-law. After Ali established the Umayyad dynasty, Muawiyah I, the leader of the Sufyans, ruled from Damascus, strengthening the empire and the support of the Syrian army. Just to be clear, Damascus is the capital of modern-day Syria, which is why Syria is here. The Umayyads expanded their territory from Khorasan to northwest Africa, even attempting to conquer Constantinople, which they almost did. Despite adopting the Byzantine and the Persian bureaucratic system, the Umayyads maintained their Arab tribal roots. However, tensions arose when Al-Mu'ayyad passed and the caliphate to his son. Dang, that sucks. Yazid I, leading another civil war. Eventually, Marwan I emerged victorious, solidifying the Umayyads' rule among ongoing tribal conflicts. Dang. The first Umayyads' legacy includes the remarkable architectural achievements as the Great Mosques of Damascus, or the Mosques of Cordoba, and the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem. They also played a significant role in spreading Islam in the Arabic language. Now, unfortunately, the empire overextended their defenses. They had frequent revolts and depleted treasury by 717. And despite the efforts of Khalfan Ahmad II, the strain proved to be too great, and the Umayyad dynasty came to an end. Number 2, the Spanish Empire. From late 1400s to late 1800s, the Spanish only goals were to become the empire. With a whopping 5.3 million square miles, economic and military might, they were basically the BTS of the 16th century, as everyone knew who they were, and they were very, very, very well known, but sometimes not in a good way. Born in 1492, when Europe was still going through the absolutionist phase, that's an odd word, it flourished quickly, with the Spanish basically turning overseas colonization into a game, and they were winning. Each conquest was like their own private estate, complete with tropical views and mass murder, vacation spots, and more. Let's start at the beginning. We've all heard of the Kingmaker. Well, Spain was the empire builder. And in Europe, the 16th centuries, sailing across the Atlantic Pacific Oceans, they were pretty much coined in the terms of making it rain. As if we don't know, the New World had loads of gold. that they were exploding. Matter of fact, with every New World discovery, they were likely to give the land to the Aztecs and the Inca civilizations in the North and South America, as they expected everyone to bend to their dominated both to the high seas and the European battlefields. During their glory days in the 16th and 17th centuries, Spain was all the rage, as they were known for their cultural golden age, literally, because again they had lots of gold, especially thanks to the stolen silver and gold flowing from the Americas mines. And they were definitely fossiling and funding wars, that's for sure. They were considered to be the most richest nation around that time. Despite their ups and downs, they ran the show, and until this 18th century. Like the trailblazers that they were, they came up with a fancy idea on laws, economics, and war. They even started questioning the whole legitimacy of imperialism. Pretty deep stuff, for a bunch of conquistadors. At its height, this empire stretched its dominance over the Iberian Peninsula beyond. From Europe to Africa, to Asia, to the Americas, they were key players and credited with spreading Catholicism. I thought it was, I don't know, bro. Catholicism, I think it's that. Transformed Spain into a global language, being Spanish. Their power influenced. The powers was basically the most influenced, and they were top tier. But what happened? How did they fall? Well, politics, mainly. It was like a game of tug of war. American gladiator style between British, France, and Austria, with Holland and Portugal lurking around like hyenas waiting to steal your kills. These countries had century-long beef with Spain, stemming from their days as the part of the empire that they were, north remembering vibes into dramatic historic realities, with shown of alliances shifting with betrayal to the north. Because you might be thinking, weren't Spain part of the Habsburg monarchy? You're right. Now, despite booming shipping industries of the mid 1740s, the 7 Years' War kicked off, and trade controls were loosened, and shipping within the empire exploded in the 1780s, with Cadids, who lost its trade monopoly with America. Spanish manufacturers had a renaissance. On the flip side, in the rural countryside of Spain, has an expansive empire housed the majority of its population and was struck in a time warp of an outdated traditions. And the infrastructure attempted to modernize agriculture, and a time practiced fell short, as peasants, landless workers were too exploited to care. Coupled with an indecisive government and the economy that became stagnant, the trading agreements struggled to keep up with the demands of the growing empire, causing tensions with elite colonialism that was just too wanted to decent goals to steady up. In 1808, the Spanish king fell to a devious scheme by Napoleon, and Spain found itself under French rule, without even firing a shot. The French were ruthless and fiery with Spaniards and chose guerrilla warfare to escape their grasp. Some say this was Napoleon's Vietnam, and between civil wars, succession squabbles, and a brief filing with the Republic, before settling on a liberal democracy. Now, most of their colonial territories were lost, but they were able to hold on to spots like Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines until the Dark Day came. They lost the war against the United States. God bless America. And that's when we lost all those other stuff. And Spain was like that one friend who keeps losing their phone. Except instead of their Samsung, it was territorial portfolio. Lots of territories, poor economy, and that is how you collapse an empire. Number 3, the Ottoman Empire. At the peak of its power during the 16th and 17th century, the Islamic Empire of Suleiman the Magnificent spanned across the 3 continents: Southeastern Europe, Western Asia, and North Africa. However, like a trendy pair of bell-bottoms, the Ottoman Empire eventually fell out of fashion and collapsed in the early 20th century due to power struggles and after losing a major war. We'll get back to that in a second. With humble beginnings as a small Turkish tribe, it rose to be the ultimate power player in the 15th and 16th centuries. This empire had a run of over 600 years, not calling it quits until 1922, when the Turkish Republic rose over the remains of the 4 great powers, stretching far and wide from southeastern Europe to the doorsteps of Vienna, gobbling up territories such as Hungary, the Balkans, Greece, and parts of Ukraine. They dabbled in Middle East, passing up the torch of the modern-day nations like Iraq, and the empire that just could not be stopped until it was. In 1345, Ottoman troops decided to spice up their summer vacation plans and invade Europe. Making their way through the Balkans, they may have taken a slight detour into 1402 when Timur showed up, but they bounced back quickly, and by 1453, they had their eyes set on playing with the big boys. I'm talking the Byzantium Empire turning Constantinople into the new spring break spot, renaming it to Istanbul. Not only that, they also changed their capital to being Istanbul. That's where everyone thinks, their capital is, but it's Ankara. Okay, Turkey's capital is Ankara. Forward to Selim first and his son Suleiman I, who basically took the Ottoman Empire to the next level. Suleiman was out here flexing his muscles, claiming parts of Persia, most of Arabia, and even snagging some of prime real estate in Hungary and the Balkans. They were on a roll, defeating dynasties left and right with 1-2 punches on each of them, even the Mamelukes in Syria and Egypt. And let's not forget about Barbarossa and his navy, cruising down the Barbary coast like it was their own personal playground. Like, oh my lord. And just when you thought they couldn't get any cooler, the Ottoman sultans decided to change up and add the new title to the resume: Caliphate, aka the spiritual head is Islam. Hey, didn't we talk about the Caliphate earlier on the episode? Yeah, we did. That's crazy. As you can see, they seem to be adding their own claims to their own stuff. It's safe to say that they're not only conquering lands, but also hearts and mind. Ottomans brought together craftspeople from across Europe, Africa, and the Middle East, and Central Asia to unite to create a unique blend of culture innovations. For example, the Iznik Krematics were made of using technologies and from China in the Ming Dynasty, but reimagined with Ottomans Moffats and controlled by the 3 important religious cities: Jerusalem, Mecca, and Medina. Attempts to modernize in agriculture practices fell short because of peasants and landless workers who were too exploited to care. Similar to what happened up there, wasn't it? Coupled with an indecisive government, and the economy became stagnant. It is trading agreements that struggled to keep up with the demands of a growing empire, and causing tension with the elite colonialists, who just wanted decent goods and steady way to sell. I also want to mention that the Ottomans claimed that they were the rightful ruler of the Roman Empire, basically like their son, which is crazy, because they were also the rightful ruler of the Caliphate, so they're just the rightful ruler of anything, aren't they? It's crazy. Now, what was their biggest power move, though? You see, snatching up Constantinople caused mass exodus and scholars into Italy. However, talk about brain drain, as these scholars brought them ancient acknowledgement. In the Renaissance, the Ottomans proved that they were not only conquering lands, but they were conquering minds. Because they weren't just chilling in Istanbul, twiddling their thumbs. They decided to save up their astronomy game and become those extra smart kids that are living on observatory. And don't even get me started on those navy skills. They were basically the ruler of the Mediterranean Sea, making waves left and right, destroying any neighbors that ever decided to fight them. But what happened? I mean, they seemed like they were doing well for themselves. Why did they fall? Actually, they've been on a fall for most of the time, because during its decline way back in the 16th century, like a slow motion train track, they just kept chugging along for centuries. Not to bore you, but I'm sorry, because let me go back on track real quick. Mainly because of the fact that, like, the European powers such as France and the UK really needed them to stay alive to keep the balance in power. But not to bore you, okay? Let's fast forward to the grand final of World War I. The Empire has already lost chunks of lands due to the British attacking from the south, and the fact that they were, not even close to. They were like 10 years behind the Industrial Revolution. Bro was fighting with dinosaur technology, and like a desperate teenager trying to fit in, Ottomans made a catastrophic decision to buddy up with Germany in the war. Spoiler alert, it did not go well, as it was basically a 1v3 against Germany and all of Europe. So, that happened. They lost roughly 3 million citizens that got Thanos. And let's not forget about the Armenians, the Ottomans spent unnecessary resources to kill 1.5 million of them. Like, come on, bro. You guys didn't want to live, did you? So yeah, World War I was the final nail in the coffin that led up to the Turkish Civil War that pronounced the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. So yeah, that went out with a bang. And a lot of gunshot bangs due to the casualties. Let's go ahead and talk about another empire that collapsed roughly the same time as the Ottomans. The Russian Empire! I know you guys love that one. Starting in at number 4, the Russian Empire was founded back in 1895 and was flossing around like it owned the world, covering a whopping 8.9 square miles, with a sheer size and power that basically had to step in and save Europe from Napoleon's attempt at world domination. Just like a typical day of a life of a giant empire. No big deal. On the fateful November 2nd, back in 1721, the Russian Senate was feeling generous and decided to gift Peter I with the grand title of Emperor of all the Russias. And quite an upgrade of the guy who previously just built boats. Now, this mighty empire came to be in 1721 as Tsar Peter I leveled up like a boss, striking a sweet deal with those pesky Swedes and founding the Russian Empire. Just to be clear, by deal I mean he absolutely destroyed the Swedish people. Made them lose lands, but we'll get back to that in a moment. He was all about getting that sweet expansion and making the Russians as hip and happening as the rest of Europe. Because previously they were owned by a great horde, and they weren't really about modernization, more like throw horses at at people and hope you win. Which is okay, I guess, but it just won't work that well if you go against planes. As a member of the elite Romanov crew, Peter was on a mission to level up Russia from its old ways, and he went through further with the previous reforms, shaking up every aspect of the Russian life like a boss. This dude was about that life hustle and pushing the industry for commerce and to make his empire envy of the world. Peter wasn't just building an empire, he was building a brand. Now, every revolutionary and learning from the past empires, he divided Russia like a pro, creating 8 mega provinces and individual governors, and a generosity sidekicks, tax collections handled by the Dolosh chiefs, and the original money wranglers. The only thing holding up these provinces together was the old Emperor Peter himself, but he knew exactly what he needed to get some backup. Entering governing, the Senate was 9 members ready to bring some centralization oversight to the party, with a boring old bureaucracy entering Peter's pronoun reforms. Peter basically played a game of governmental Tetris in Russia, as he was shifting pieces until he found the perfect fit. He just didn't rearrange the furniture, and he completely revamped the imperial setup into 12 new colleges. It was like Hogwarts, but except with less magic and more paperwork. That actually kind of sucks now that I think about it. That sounds awful. But these colleges were basically the Avengers of the bureaucracy, and one team oversaw state affairs and handled financial advices and administration, with the third managed industry and commerce. Now, the final group was in charge of things that legal and land related, basically the lords of the real estate agents of the empire. Now, this had a bold move, and Peter also put the Russian Orthodox Church in its place, as he was ditching the ruling of the Patriarchate system and replaced it with something more of a laid-back leadership. He was basically telling the church, hey, I'm the captain now. He was definitely not shy about taking control, just like Napoleon. Did you see the way Napoleon put that crown on his head instead of the Pope? He was the one who was in control, just like Russia nowadays. Peter's regime turned Russia into the Loki of the world, as they were constantly at war with all the other empires, and it led for a tax system to mix over to cover all the expenses. With the old and the new of a soul tax, the Russians' everyday males and nobility clerics got a free pass, and the taxes were basically the empire's version of fundraising campaign for the military and naval forces. War. I love war, don't you? The finesse of a seasoned diplomat and the might of his formidable army and navy, Peter went on a great conquest of sprees and expanded his realm in all directions, and boosting his reputation among the international cliques. His realm went from 0 to hero in a record time. Everyone was an awesome struck, as the marvel of his brilliant strategies was to be shown. In Mother Russia, science and technology reigned supreme, and the empire boasted an impressive lineup of brainiacs, from Dmitri Mendeleev, I think that's how you say it, to the maestro behind the periodic table, and Alexander Popov to the radio wizard. Volodymyr Kosma Zoroskin made history with the first electrical microscope, while Sergei Kodin Gorsky added a splash of color to his revolutionary photos. Who knew Russia was in Silicon Valley of the past? Now, huge shout out to Russia for the expansion of transportation, as the empire flexed its muscles and laid down a massive 5,778 mile Trans-Siberian Railway. Because why walk when you can ride faster in style? Also, Siberia isn't very a fun place to walk as it's literally snowing, but hey, it's fine. They also plopped in on St. Petersburg like it was playing a game of SimCity and creating a bustled metropolis and all the other cities that put everything to shame. Now, the Empire was not only kicked Napoleon's butt in 1815, but also managed to set a high culture hub in the middle of nowhere that needed to be a global trade of culture when you got Russia to flare. Like, come on now. You got messed up now. Come on. Fast forward a few centuries to March 15th, 1917, and Tsar Nicholas II progress hit a metaphorical pothole as thanks to his love for being the boss, he had some entitled aristocrats throwing shade and series to unfortunate events of the Russian military in the epic showdown with Japan and World War One. I'll explain Japan in a second, but the struggle was real, as every Caesar has their kryptonite, right? He was just being tone deaf because his people, after losing their support, was forced to abdicate, making the end of the Romanov dynasty. Talk about a royal flush, am I right? Now, with Japan, they were going into a giant war with Japan, and Japan actually surprised everyone by winning and taking control of influence in Manchuria and southern that island. I forget what the island's called, but it'll be put up there on the screen. The revolutionaries shook things up in Russia, and it all started with some serious discontentment in the mutinies in the army, as one of the plans was literally just simply allow the Germans to just walk into the territory. Very smart. The people had enough of the government's neglect, economic woes, found shortages, and a touch of corruption, leaving them to feel a bit jaded. By October, the Bolsheviks swooped in like scavengers led by the one and only Vladimir Lenin, sending the Republic packing to the October Revolution. And just like that, the Bolsheviks walks into the Strait of St. Petersburg, ready to change not only the face of Russia, but so much more. Entered the Soviet Union after some other mutinies, killing of a bunch of people, and fixing votings. Now, we can't end this without giving a huge shout out to the Russian Soviet Union, who showed the no-no Germans whose boss during World War II. As the Red Army laying its ultimate WWF SmackDown, or WWE if you consider it that, and the Wehrmacht, and serving the French defeat of the Civil Flotte. With their counter-offensive, like they were well-executed plot twists that had everyone saying, "Oh snap, we can actually win this thingy." The Soviet Union was basically a hero despite the written history textbook. Last but not least, we got the British Empire, being the world's largest empire as to date. In the early 20th century, the British Empire was one heck of a global powerhouse, dominating a quarter of the planet and hosting an equally impressive chunk of the world's population. While many former colonies have broken free, there are still a few stragglers chilling in the Commonwealth of Nations, like that of cousins you won't leave your house after the holidays. I know you will, Jimothy. Anyways, let's go ahead and pour a spot of tea and chat about the powerhouse of this empire on a magnificent web of colonies, protectorates, and also territories that fall under the dominance of the crown of the Great Britain. Yeah! Over 3 centuries, the sun never sets on its illustrious empire, thanks to the British astute administration. The empire's policies of granting self-government to its vast array of territories eventually gave to the rise of the idea of the Commonwealth. And the 20th century, The Commonwealth consisted of mostly 20 self-government territories that still pay homage to the British sovereignty, in a very to more symbolic sense. I mean, the concept of the British Commonwealth was even enshrined in the law in 1931, solidifying the bond between Britain and its former colonies. Now, today the Commonwealth stands as a great testament to the Empire's legacies, encompassing the territories that once bowed to Great Britain. It is pretty clear that this empire was throwing some serious shades at the other countries. With this never-ending reign of dominance, by 1919, Britain had actually collected more currency than the holder at a garage sale. I did not know that. Did you? Thanks to the snatching of some of the German Empire's colonies after World War One, and giving German Samoa to Australia during the Treaties of Versailles, the First World War may have left scars, but for Britain, it was basically like winning the lottery for colonial conquests. Except for the whole having to give a bunch of loans to other people and taking loans from the US. That part sucked. Back in 1922, this empire was hanging out in the Park Avenue and Boardwalk section of the Monopoly, with its tentacles stretching across the open quarter of the globe's land and controlling a mind-boggling 458 million folks. This was basically the kingpin of Gotham. In the 16th century, Great Britain dipped its toes into the water of the overseas settlements, testing the trifling exploitation and colonization waters. By the 17th century, they were fueled by a mix of commercial aspirations and a good old-fashioned rivalry with the French. The Brits kicked into the high gear and they were like, hold up, hold on to your taghorn hats. We're attacking a modestly global, mate. Come on now. Soon enough, British colonies were popping up like these daisies in New North America and the Caribbean, as New England, Virginia, Maryland, check, oh, let's not forget about Jamaica, snagged through the conquest and snagged through the conquest in 1655, as the Hudson Bay Company staked its claim to what we now know as Northwest Canada. And talk about spreading like the British plague, as the East India Company got into action too, setting up shop in India in 1600. The Straits Settlement, Penang, Singapore, Malacca, and Labuan all fell under British rule, thanks to some agreement and treaties and wars. Wink wink. By the 17th century, the Brits were making themselves at home all over the map, as from the shores of Africa to the depths of South Africa, they were planting their flags and declaring, "This is our land, this is our land." Slave trading? Yeah, we dab a little bit into that too. Although they didn't officially snag Ceylon until 1787. And let's not forget about the Cape Gold Hope bagged by the Britons in 1806. All in all, the Brits were colonizing, conquering, and exploring their way to global domination. It was like a real-life game of Risk, but with more tea breaks and less board flopping. Like many empires before them, they had two main contributions. One being hegemony, and to determine that they would not let the regime fall to the side of many others. Their form of government was meant to stand the test of time, rulers of a quarter of the globe before World War One, and they had to spread their culture, language, and values with one thing in mind: dominance. Their ability to shape the international system, basically allowing Britain to kick back, relax, and casually rule the world. Creating an informational empire, with them acting as global police, laying down the law and making sure that everyone plays by the rules, while the other empires were playing imperialism, aka the game of brute military and economic forces. Hegemony uses British force to make and spread its values through dominance language like English. Liberal democracy and trade, they basically owned the oceans and dominated the world trade like it was the side hustle. Controlling economic and enforcing their interests, that was child's play for the Brits. Innovation also came a way of life, as discovered gravity, hydrogen, and Plinson, and dabbled in their theories in hydrodynamic and natural evolutions. Just another day at the police office for the brain began Big Ben. And let's explore how James Cook, the epic adventures in 18th century that laid the groundwork for colonizing Australia and New Zealand and sparkling trade, and with the missionary achievements for activities and like business with no others. So what happened? Why did they fall? How did they fall? Well, World War I took more than just the Russians' empires. It hurt the British as well. Adding World War II and double whammy really took down the British a few pegs, draining its bank accounts, causing some embarrassing military defeats. Not only that, once the United States stepped in their game and they got into action, as the US demanded the decolonization of Africa, at least slowly. The British global regime was simply toast and basically burned. Now, so long, chaps, as Uncle Sam has just dropped a like. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. Goodbye.